Welcome and good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am Katy Carpman, the Director of Religious Education here at Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church in Houston, Texas. Our beloved community of faith, reason, and affection welcomes all to grow in mind and spirit as together we build a better world and we say, Yay, Astros! I regret to inform the parents that you need to be checking your school district calendars as HISD just canceled classes for tomorrow so folks can go to the parade. On that note, if you are joining us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome to you and invite you to fill out our visitor card, either online or the yellow one in your pew, so you can receive more information about Emerson and our activities. Again, welcome to all. We are a church in many places, some of us here in the pews and some joining us on YouTube from home or wherever we might be. And our world is a different one than it was in early 2020. Our worship service has changed accordingly. We're giving people choices on the distance they'd like between families and whether or not they would like to continue masking. We've put a few offering baskets at the front and back of the sanctuary for people to drop off their offering throughout the service rather than passing the plates. For those of us in the sanctuary this morning, let's take a moment to picture the dozens of friends, neighbors, and those we've yet to meet who are taking part in this service on YouTube, either right now or later in the week as their schedules allow. Do remember to put your phone into worship mode, which for me means just making it silent so that take me out to the ball game does not disrupt things, but for you might mean getting it dark and quiet and in your pocket. Following the worship service, folks in the pews may head out to the courtyard and the playground, stop in the gathering place to grab coffee or a treat, and we'll also have social time on Zoom, hosted by Board Trustee Marilyn Rambo. A chance for all of us to gather in smaller groups to discuss the service and what's going on in our lives. We are pleased to welcome the Reverend Katy Norris to our pulpit today. She is a Unitarian Universalist community minister working as a Montessori-based dementia care specialist and brain health coach. Reverend Norris helps family care partners live well with dementia through online courses and individual coaching in dementia care and cognitive health. She is the primary author of Creative Connections in Dementia Care. And now, Artem for our postlude.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you all today, and thank you for welcoming me to your church. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. For our chalice lighting, we light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere. The words will be on the screen.
Okay, y'all, let's get real. Have you ever had one of those times where something happens, and it might be that somebody else hurts your feelings, or it might be that you've messed up, and it is just super awkward. You're like to that point where you're like, I don't know if I should scream or I should just avoid this person for the rest of time. Seriously, that this happens. I know we think that this is something that we figure out, either our parents teach us some secret or the middle school science teacher drops it into, I don't know. But for many of us, it is exceedingly awkward when we don't know what to do next. When we've hurt or we're feeling hurt. And perhaps this is something where we can learn a script, where we can have some sort of ritual in our lives or something to just come back to. Today I'm going to share one that is commonly used in Montessori classrooms. I know some of you are going, oh my God, they're going to talk about 4-year-olds. What strategy for 4-year-olds can work for me? I haven't been 4 for a few decades. And I'm going to think about what might be the touch point in your life. What might be the thing that goes, ding, this is a time when I need to reach into my strategies. So our story today is called The Peace Rose by Alicia Olson. In a special place in our room, we have a peace rose. When we have a problem, the rose helps us talk about our feelings. Once, John and William both started to paint at the same time. They went to get the peace rose, and they took turns talking. William, I felt sad when you wanted to paint at the same time. Please, let me go first. Okay, John, I'm sorry. Please tell me when you're finished. They both took the rose and they said, friends. Another time, Hannah took Jacob's block. He said, you're not my friend anymore. people in your 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. We usually don't say that part out loud, but sometimes we decide it in our hearts. Hannah went to the peace shelf to get the rose, and they took turns talking. Jacob, I felt hurt when you said, "You're not my friend anymore." Please don't say that. Okay, Hannah, but I felt angry when you grabbed my block. Please ask first. Once again, they took the rose. Friends. You can even solve a problem without using a rose, like the time Heather pushed Jackie. The two girls took turns talking. Heather, I felt mad when you pushed me. Please keep your hands to yourself. Okay, Jackie, I'm sorry. Friends. I know not all of us keep a rose in our back pockets at all times, but what might be the little script that helps you? What might be the mental picture that can remind you that it's okay to talk about our feelings and what happens next as we are in relationship with one another? And now, Ellen Norton.
Hi, I'm Ellen Norton. I'm on the Board of Trustees and also chairperson of the Social Action Council. And Dory asked me to talk a couple of minutes about why I love Emerson and why I'm a member. And these are the reasons. Emerson is a community of people that do their best to live according to the 7 principles. Emerson provides spiritual nourishment to its own members and many others. And finally, for 60 years, Emerson has been a leader in social action and social justice in the Houston and larger UU communities. For these and many other reasons, I am very happy to be a member of Emerson and fully support it. Thank you.
Giving out of what is our own is a transformative act. As a community of faith, we collect an offering not for ourselves or our congregation, but to give to others as a collective action of our community and as a way to live out our shared values. Please give with a generous heart to support our November Share the Plate recipient, Answer Nepal. Each year, this organization funds the middle, high school, and college education of about 700 promising students from very poor and low-caste families. Emerson has a long-standing relationship with Answer Nepal, part of our commitment to social action and justice. Visit their website to learn more. And the remaining 25% of our offering goes to our ongoing commitment to Interfaith Ministries' Meals on Wheels, feeding Houston seniors. We have 3 ways to give. You can go to our webpage for online giving, or you can put your offering in our baskets or mail the check to the church.
For our meditation today, you are going to need the finger labyrinths that you were given when you came in, so I hope everybody has one, or if not, let us know. This is one of my favorite peaceful and mindfulness practices that I use myself, also with people with dementia. So, and I love that Katy already had these. They look like a brain. I'm very excited. So I would like you to kind of find a comfortable place to be in your seats, and then place your labyrinth maybe on your lap or on the pew next to you, somewhere where you can follow it with your finger and it's comfortable. So with the labyrinth, and if you are on Zoom, you might be able to follow it on your screen. So with the labyrinth, we start at the bottom, and you slowly trace until you get to the middle, and then you reverse, and you go back to where you started. So we want to use this as a simple meditation. So go ahead and start at the bottom of the labyrinth, and as you trace your way slowly to the middle, I want you to think about breathing slowly at a pace that works for you, something that feels comfortable. Think of bringing peace to yourself as you go towards the center. Inner peace is cultivated when we are free from disturbance, when we have tranquility, which can be hard to find sometimes. We can practice being free from disturbance by learning to be in the present moment without judgment. So as you bring your inner peace to yourself by tracing the labyrinth to the center, when other thoughts about the worries of life come into your mind, try to let them pass by like an old movie screen. And then as you trace out from the middle, whenever you get there, think of sending that peace that you just brought to yourself out into the world, still keeping with the breathing pace that's comfortable for you. And when the worries of the world come in, let those pass by as well, like you are watching them on an old movie screen. Take a few more breaths as you finish with the labyrinth. And now let us slowly come back to the present moment and be in this space together. Thankful for this time to practice peace, be in community. Amen, and blessed be.
This reading is called Letter from Our Better Angels by Sean Parker Dennison. Dear one, we have received your letter, and we hate to tell you, not hate so much, but are a bit afraid to say, we cannot grant your requests as stated, but can only remind you of familiar things. First, faith. Faith in yourself and trust in others. We know it can be terrifying to be vulnerable, but only when you share your softest side will we be able to break through. Next, hope. Hope is not an empty fairy tale. It is the true story of all the times human beings like you have found a way to create the future, though you didn't know how. And of course, love. Love that demands you to cherish all people, not just yourself and safety. Love that is not satisfied until every argument ends abruptly when one child says, "That hurts." There is so much to learn and relearn, The world teaches you to be hard, to negotiate and defend, to avoid giving too much and to the wrong people. There are no wrong people. You also are not wrong. And when you encounter the poor, the broken, the unhoused and unwelcome, you are looking, if you pay attention, at us, calling you to answer your own prayers. If you want to change the world, first, be sure you are changing yourself. Be tender, be kind, be at peace, be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. It isn't without cost, but it will be free.
Thank you so much for that, because it was a beautiful rendition of that song, so thank you. Definitely made me feel more peaceful, and I'm sure it did for everybody else. It's one of my favorite songs, and I tend to remind it when I'm stressed out, or bring it to mind when I'm stressed out and repeat it over and over again, So peace has been an essential part of my life since I was a small child at 3 years old when I started in a Montessori classroom, and I went to Montessori through 8th grade. And sometimes people are like, why are you talking about Montessori? We're all adults. And what I love about the Montessori method being around for so long is that now we have the research on the neurology about why Montessori works and why it helps adults as well. So I use it a lot in life, but I really feel like it's probably one of the things that set me up to be Unitarian Universalist later, because it was very much about peace and that everyone has inherent worth and dignity. So I am very indebted. Now, when Dr. Maria Montessori created her new educational system back in the 1880s, she insisted it was essential to teach children peace, but her peace education was not focused on how to end war or teaching about how war is bad, because she felt that war was more of the ending point of not being a peaceful people. So peace in the dictionary is defined in two ways. One as freedom from disturbance or tranquility, and the other as a state or period in which there is no war or war has ended. So peace is basically defined as both inner peace and peace between people. That's lofty goals that humanity has been striving for centuries, and sometimes it feels like we still can't figure it out. So why is peace so desired but so elusive, and how do we keep cultivating it even when it's hard? So Dr. Montessori believed that the reason we were struggling so much with peace back in the 1930s, when she was speaking at world conferences on how to create peace, and if you go back and read these essays, if you read them and don't know the year, you would think it was right now, because there's even a section about pandemic in there that is super interesting. But she felt that we were struggling so much with peace because peace is a skill that is taught, and it begins with us as individuals first. When children are not taught how to have inner peace, they grow up to be very reactive and unable to make peaceful choices, and they don't have the tools to cultivate peace in relationships with others. She felt that children needed to be put in prepared environments that saw them as important and not worth less than adults, but that everybody has worth and dignity, regardless of age or ability. The environment also needed to be a place that didn't glorify competition and like every child for themselves, and that some ways of learning are better than others. She felt that this kind of competition and separation between people cultivated the opposite of peace. We would like to think that we're all born with the innate ability to be peaceful people, but in fact, someone has to teach us these skills. As children, when we're distressed, scared, anxious, or overwhelmed, before we have a way to say or communicate what's wrong or ask for what we need, all our brain knows how to do is respond with base primal instincts of fight, flight, or freeze. So you know that we all had tantrums as kids, yes? Often over things our parents thought were completely pointless. So my mom always told me this story about when she was a little girl, and for some reason her biggest tantrums were around cookies. She had to have a cookie in each hand whenever she had a cookie. And she remembers her mom thought that it was a little weird or ridiculous, but my mom, for some reason, felt like if she had a cookie in one hand, like this hand would be unfair because it wasn't even. And so for her, like fairness and being kind was really important, and she had to have these two cookies. And she said half the time, it's not like she ate both of them, she usually ate one, but like it had to be even, right? So in our child brain, these pointless things are really concerning to us, and they usually relate to, our sense of fairness, justice, safety, things like that. And unless we have someone to show us how to peacefully get through this distress, we just keep lashing out. So peace is a learned behavior, and it's not a simple thing to teach, though, especially in a culture that is very competition-focused and extremely individualistic. So to cultivate peace in ourselves, and in the children in our own lives, I go back to the Montessori methodology. So one of my favorite parts of my son's Montessori classrooms when he was little, he's now 18, which I cannot believe, was the Peace Corner that every Montessori classroom had. So this is where you would find the Peace Rose book with the rose that the kids could use and pass back and forth. These corners also often had like yoga cards, a mirror so you can do your yoga poses, the finger labyrinths, and a feelings chart. And in the Peace Corner, the kids then had tools to cultivate peace within themselves when they were scared, angry, sad, anxious, or even happy. You could just go there. When you're really happy and you're like they can go there and like feel their happiness in a safe space. And in a Montessori classroom, you do your work, you choose your work and to do it at your own pace. So like if you are feeling distressed in a particular time, you can just go to the Peace Room or Peace Corner anytime, calm yourself, and then come back to do your work. So at one of my son's schools, you could go outside and walk the meditation spiral, which is made of flowers in the summer, pumpkins in the fall, and rocks in the winter, because we know that being in nature is really helpful to be peaceful as well. So every day the children were allowed to practice peace, whenever they needed it, and this translated into their everyday life as well. So one day when my son was like 5, I saw him like taking all these enormous couch cushions, like covering his whole body, up from downstairs from his the living room up to his bedroom. So I followed him to see what he was doing, and he had all the pillows like piled up in a corner, and then he had some of his favorite stuffed animals and like his favorite books. And I asked him what he was doing, and he said that he was making a peace corner like he has in school. And I was kind of shocked because my 5-year-old son at the time was like doing martial arts and soccer and super high energy, athletic kid, running around all the time, climbing things that should not be climbed, but he did it really well. And then became a rock climber later, so. But he knew to still create a peace corner for himself when he was struggling. And haven't we all felt scared, anxious, angry, or overwhelmed? And in those times, it can be really hard to make peaceful decisions if we don't have the tools to create peace in ourselves. So one of the things that I love to talk about is the brain and how it shapes our behaviors and even the behavior of peace. How we learn to deal with emotions like fear, anxiousness, sadness, grief, and even happiness are neural pathways that are created over time in our brain from others in our life. Yes, most often from our childhood, but we learn new things as we get older. So our brain is has neuroplasticity, and we can change that wiring and create new pathways. We don't feel at peace, or as it's defined as freedom from disturbance, when our brain has not learned healthy ways to deal with distressing emotions. I think we all know, like, that just doesn't feel very peaceful at all. Instead, the brain just goes to the base instinct of fear and tries to do things to keep us safe. So fear is the opposite of peace. And that's when we might do things like yell at others, hate on ourselves, or have other not so peaceful behaviors. What we want to do to cultivate our inner peace is to work on calming the amygdala, and this is the fear center in our brain. It's down here. That's the thing that leads to an immediate fight, flight, freeze, or now we know something called a fawn response, which is excessive people-pleasing. We calm it enough so it can allow us to think things through a little bit. And instead of just everything staying in the amygdala and all this fear, then we can start to use our frontal lobe, which allows us to integrate emotion with reason and logic. And it's from that space that peaceful decisions come. And the best way to do this is through some of the oldest spiritual practices in the world, which you actually did one today, which is the labyrinth. Any practice that allows you to be in the present moment without judgment, such as any form of meditation, mindfulness, body work like yoga, journaling, certain types of prayer, being in nature or breathing techniques, even being in community with other people. These help our brain calm and be peaceful. And thanks to science, we now have research to show that these practices actually do work. So during meditation or mindfulness practice, scans of the brain show that the amygdala is calmed. But interestingly, in a study that looked at people who engaged in mindfulness practice for at least 8 weeks, they also scanned the brain when people were not meditating, and they would show them distressing stimuli, which does not sound very fun, but they noticed on those brain scans that there was still a decrease in amygdala activation, showing that meditation and mindfulness, if we do it outside of being stressed, that it still helps calm the brain even when we're not actually meditating. But like all things with the brain, it learns through consistent repetition. So we can't just know that these things are a good idea and think we'll do them when we are distressed, because we won't. They have to be practiced to create the neural wiring. And you have to practice these things when you're not scared or otherwise distressed. So this is one of the biggest issues I see with teaching peace or calming practices today. So it's all framed as when you feel distressed, take 10 deep breaths or say a calming mantra 5 times. And that is great and true. But think about, have you ever tried to do one of those things when you're distressed? When you are just panicking, someone's like, just breathe. And you are like, I am not okay right now. So the problem with that is that your brain is not used to doing that yet, and so it sees it as scary because your brain is panicking or very upset, and it thinks you need to fix it right away. And in its mind, breathing it is not going to fix it because it's not used to breathing or doing something calming as being safe. So again, I saw how this daily practice worked with my son when he was probably 6 or 7 years old, and he was in a soccer game. And it's proud parent, you parenting moment. I look over on the sidelines, and he's meditating like this with his legs, with another kid. I thought it was adorable. And so, when he's in a game, and then you're going to be put back in the game. So he's calming himself so that he can go back in and be focused. And so because he had practiced these tools, like at normal times of the day, when nothing was going on, he knew to use them in his everyday life when he really needed them. And in the Peace Corner, that is introduced in Montessori classrooms repeatedly and at normal times. It's not just during conflict. So the kids are shown how to use it throughout the school year. So if you don't already do this, you just want to take a few minutes every day to practice peace, especially as we're like leading into the holidays. It gets a little stressful. You already have 2 tools that you can use from today. You can print out a finger labyrinth for yourself, or you can sing to yourself out louder in your head the meditation on breathing, or just work on some slow breathing where you are sitting and let thoughts come in, see them, and let them pass by. Sometimes people tell you to go for like a full 20 minutes, but for a lot of people it's too much. So if you can get a minute, that's great, and then you can go from there. So it sounds really simple, but it's not always easy, and we know that sometimes the simple things are the hardest to do. But if we are then practicing peace within ourselves, it's going to help translate then into when we need to have peace between us and someone else. And I find that the holidays are such an interesting juxtaposition in peace. This is the one time a year where peace is like at the forefront of our minds. Everybody's talking about it. Yet we know that for most of us, especially in some families, creating peace only gets harder around the holidays. It's so weird because news and social media is like, bring peace to the holidays and everything. And then it's like how to survive your family. And it's very confusing. So in looking for tools that we can use to cultivate peace between other people and especially in our families, I do turn back to the peace rose. And that's what I want you to remember around the holiday dinner table or whenever you're in a place where you need this tool. Just think of the rose and focus on how you're going to talk to somebody else. So the peace rose teaches children how to discuss and resolve conflict on their own, like you saw. And they pass the rose back and forth. Only one person talks at a time. They use I statements, probably all things you've heard before and all things that are not easy. But you'll also notice in the book that the kids set boundaries. So research professor Brene Brown says that compassionate people ask for what they need. They say no when they need to. And when they say yes, they mean it. They're compassionate because their boundaries keep them out of resentment. She found that compassionate people do not set boundaries to try and change others, but they set boundaries to respect themselves. Because when we're not respected, we feel resentful and we feel unsafe, and we definitely don't make peaceful decisions when we feel that way. But setting boundaries is probably one of the hardest things we will ever do, and we are rarely taught how to do it. Like, I don't know if a lot of people are taught. There's no class in school on that unless you had a Peace Rose in a Montessori school. So let's look at one of the examples from the Peace Rose book where Hannah says, Jacob, I felt hurt when you said you're not my friend anymore. Please don't say that. So she stated how she felt and then her need, the boundary, so please don't say that. And Jacob replies, okay, Hannah, but I felt angry when you grabbed my rock or my block. Please ask first. So the kids state their feelings and then their boundary. So here's a pattern for setting boundaries to create peace amongst adults. So you want to state how you feel using I statements. State what you need, which is your boundary. And then this is tricky, and we're going to talk about it in a second. So if needed, state what you will need to do for yourself if the boundary is not kept. And ideally, both people, this is number 4, are listening without judging. Ideally. That's the goal. So the other person may also have some boundaries that they need, and you might compromise on a boundary together. But here's the key with boundaries. They are for you, and they are not for the other person. We don't set boundaries in order to change someone else's behavior. And so this is a huge mistake people often make when talking about boundaries. They get ultimatums and boundaries confused. So this is an example of a boundary. Hopefully not at a dinner table in the holidays, but I know what happens. So when you yell at me, it makes me feel scared and I have a hard time communicating when I'm scared. I would like to talk to you about this. I need to take a break and let's come back together and talk when we're both more calm. This, however, is an ultimatum. I will not be yelled at. Either you stop yelling at me or I will leave. Can you hear the difference a little bit? So ultimatums assign a consequence to someone else's behavior in an effort to try and get their behavior to change. Whereas boundaries state your personal limits and what your needs are, and the other person has a choice to meet that need or not. So an easy way to notice if you're accidentally using an ultimatum is if your main goal is to change the other person's behavior. So generally, ultimatums don't work because using threats to get someone else to change their behavior is kind of a toxic pattern, and people's behavior tends to get worse when we use them. So to be clear, while we can't change someone else's behavior, we still need to keep ourselves safe. So I am not saying that if a person chooses not to respect our boundary that we just sit there. That's not good. So if they choose not to respect your boundary, that's when you can make your own choice about your next step, which may be to walk away from the conversation, limit contact, or any other option. But what that choice is, it's done for you. Again, not to force them to change, because it's not possible. It's really not possible for us to change someone else's behavior. So when we set boundaries in this healthy way, we learn that in many situations, we can keep ourselves safe. And when we feel safe, then we can be more compassionate and peaceful, and we'll also set better boundaries. We won't kind of stay in these situations that are really unsafe for us. We're more likely to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna take a step back now, or I'm gonna take some time away when we feel more safe. So I do wanna make a quick note about severe abusive and oppressive systems, that you need an even more detailed discussion about boundaries here and in a larger context, all right? So that'd be another sermon for another day. So please remember that if you've accidentally used ultimatums, do not panic and don't feel bad, because we have literally all done it, because that's probably what most of us have learned to do. And now we just know a different way. So let's look at the boundary example from before and talk about what to do if they've chosen not to respect your boundary. So this is an example of that boundary if they choose not to respect it, which is, when you yell at me, it makes me feel scared. I'd like to talk to you about this, so let's take a break. Come back together and talk when we're more calm. If they're like, nope, you can say, if we can't talk to each other without yelling, I'm gonna have to remove myself from the conversation. So this is really nuanced, because does the last sentence sound like an ultimatum to you? Possibly. Iffy. My husband and I have debated this a whole bunch, because it is really nuanced and a little bit confusing. So if the other person chooses that they can't meet your boundary, and you all can't figure out another boundary that would work for both of you, you do need to choose what you will do for yourself next. So remember, an ultimatum with a consequence is something you're doing to change someone else's behavior. And a boundary, if you're gonna remove yourself from the conversation, it's not done in an attempt to change their behavior, because we know that we probably can't do that. It's in order to take care of yourself. You're gonna have to remove yourself because it's not safe for you, right? So it's a subtle difference, but it really matters when we're communicating with other people, because if we keep trying ultimatums, and I see this happen a lot, we will keep going back to people over and over again thinking we can change their behavior, and then we're gonna continually be unsafe. So, and it also doesn't create any kind of peace anymore. There's usually a lot of yelling, there's usually a lot of issues, and it just keeps this really unhealthy cycle going. So just like with our inner peace practice, though, you do have to practice this outside of difficult conversations. You notice, I really had to read the boundary I had written out, right? So it's really helpful to think of situations, write out what the boundary is, check it and make sure it's comfortable for you and what you would do next. Because if you are sitting in front of someone and it's not going well, your brain is gonna be like, I need to set this boundary. It can't be an ultimatum. Oh my gosh. It's gonna get really stressed out. So practice it beforehand is really, really helpful. Find a friend who will let you say it to them as well, so that you get practice saying it out loud is very helpful. Again, because then it creates a neural pathway in your brain that says setting boundaries is safe, and I know how to do it, and I know how to be confident when I do it. So cultivating inner peace and peaceful interactions with others is a lifelong practice. We're not always gonna be perfect at it, and it can also be really scary. I would say most times it's really scary, especially when it's the stuff with other people. Other people may not be interested at all in engaging in peaceful interaction. They may not have learned any of the tools, but part of our faith, I feel, is to work for peace, even when it's hard and even when it's scary. And thankfully, though, we have each other. So the last tool I always have in my toolbox is my faith. I go to church to be reminded of my highest aspirations and to learn from others how to be a kind and loving person. And many of the tools of peace that were even in my son's Peace Corner are things that I've also learned in our churches. So you all had a finger labyrinth already. The way of talking to each other with the Peace Rose is also taught in a lot of small group ministries. And in fact, in the back of the Peace Rose book, with the teacher instructions, it says if a teacher asks two children in conflict if they'd like to use the peace rose, that the teacher should ask, would you like me to come with you, or do you feel comfortable going on your own? So a lot of church behavioral covenants, while they always maintain speaking directly to the person you're in conflict with, often have an option that if you need help, somebody else can go with you. So that's heavy boundaries, keeping peace at the holidays, but I hope that practicing this early, we're a few weeks away, will help you cultivate this peace in your own self and that you feel confident going into conversations with other people. So in the midst of this holiday season, may we embrace the good times we have together. And when things get stressful or hard, may we remember the tools that we have to create peace. May we as a faith community hold each other up and help each other when the other areas of our life may not be so peaceful. May we be peace for each other and be the ones who bring the message of peace into the world. Amen and blessed be. You good? Oh, thanks. Please rise. I took a moment, sorry. In body or spirit. For our closing hymn, number 100, I've got peace like a river.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. Peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain in my soul.
While the light of this chalice has been extinguished, we will take its meaning of faith, love, and peace out into the world with us. May we find peace within ourselves, may we cultivate peace with others, and may we uphold each other when peace is hard to find. Let us go forth from this place with peace in our hearts.
You may all be seated. So, a little bit of announcements. Social time will be on Zoom and here also in the gathering place. And there is a lunch bunch happening. I don't know where it is. Anyone want to chime in? Yes.
It's going to be in Westwood Hall. The ESL folks are providing pizza,
Oh,
and we'll talk briefly about their program.
awesome. Okay, so ESL is providing pizza, and we'll talk briefly about their program in Westwood Hall. Wonderful. Moving on, we will host a memorial for Tim Lawrence next Saturday on November 12th at 2 p.m. And the Outreach Committee is accepting nominations for next year's Share the Plate recipients. The deadline for nominations is November 14th. Forms are available in the gathering place, or you can fill out a form online. Just go to the Social Action tab on Emerson's website and click Share the Plate. This is your chance to help direct our plate offering to worthy causes. And last but not least, we have a stewardship update from Mary Evelyn Sorrell.
So it's my job today to give you an update on the pledges that have been already made to our church. It is very nice. As of this past week, we have received 66 pledges so far, totaling $345,000. That is already 58% of our goal, which is $590,000. Thanks to all of you who were so prompt in returning in your pledge card. You know, I think, that our pledges ensure that we can pay our bills in 2023, and by reaching the goal that we've set of $590,000, it will also help us to attract the minister that we want to have, who will come and lead us and inspire us as a church. And of course, our pledged money always helps us to fulfill our mission of building a better world. So if you've not pledged yet and you need a form, then you can find one out in the gathering place, or it's also on the Emerson website, so you can just download it yourself. I want everyone to be sure that they realize that this pledging for 2023 is necessary. It's not extra money. It's essential funding for our immediate future. And that's our logo for this year. It's for our future. But we need to say even more, it's for our immediate future. So we hope that we're going to send each one of you a thank you card for your pledge.
And sorry, one last announcement. If you see any kids running around, please direct them up here. We're going to have a short little kids choir rehearsal. We're continuing to work towards our holiday music Sunday. So if you see any of them running around, send them this way. Thank you. And now for our postlude.